So I didn't actually come to poker cold. I came to it because of this gentleman, John von Neumann. John von Neumann was one of the greatest minds of the 20th century, a true polymath. So that phone that you guys are holding, if it's a smartphone, was based on his ideas. He's one of the fathers of the computer. Some consider him the father of the computer, along with Alan Turing. He was one of the fathers of the hydrogen bomb. He was an advisor to the US government for many, many years, and he was the inventor of game theory, which was one of the pivotal economic theories of the 20th century. And game theory, as it turns out, was born from poker. Von Neumann was an avid poker player. He was a terrible, terrible poker player. He lost a lot of money at poker, so people loved playing with him. But he loved the game. And one day, he had an insight, which is that poker, unlike any other game he played, he loved games. He played chess, he played bridge, he played a lot of different things. But poker, unlike any other game, formed an analog for decision-making outside of the poker table, for decision-making in life. So what he realized was that life is a game of incomplete information. There are things that I know, there are things that you know, but I don't know what you know, and you don't know what I know, but there are certain things we have in common. And then we proceed from there. Chess is a game of complete information. Go is a game of complete information. There's always technically a correct move if you can solve for it. In poker, that's not the case because there are people involved, there are motivations involved, there are emotions involved, there's bluffing involved. And what he realized was this is how you learn to make strategic decisions. If I can solve poker, I will have a framework for solving life, for preventing nuclear war. He actually thought that poker might prevent nuclear war. And so this is how he came up with game theory. And it ended up that poker actually still is not solved. No Limit Hold'em is a game that AI has still not been able to solve, and I don't think it will be solved anytime soon because of the complexities involved when you have multiple people making decisions. But the insight was a profound one, and this is why I actually turned to poker in the first place. Poker as a way of looking at human decisions. So why would this be the case? Well, it turns out that the human mind is usually actually absolutely rubbish at learning correctly because there's a way that it prefers to learn, and that's through experience, what something feels like. And this is actually probably why I was so good at learning English, why kids learn languages so easily, because it's experiential. Language learning is essentially an experiential thing. And why adults don't often do it quite as well, because for them, they're no longer learning through experience. They're being taught. They are learning through description, what something is when you describe something. And there's a big difference between what something feels like and what something actually is. And in psychology, this is known as the description experience gap. And the description experience gap is one of the reasons that our brains are so rubbish at learning, why we suck at probabilities, why we don't understand risk, why we make bad decisions when it comes to uncertainty, why it's really, really difficult to get us to say, well, what does maybe feel like? What does probably feel like? That's why it's so difficult to get us to understand risk. I mean, I'm from New York, and if you ask anyone what the risk of death is by, slipping in the bathtub versus a terrorist attack, they are going to vastly overestimate the terrorist attack because they lived through 9/11. And no amount of data I give them, nothing that I give them to read will persuade them otherwise, because experience trumps description every single time. Daniel Kahneman won a Nobel Prize for this insight, for all of the biases that it leads the brain to make. And we'll talk about some of these in a little bit. But the thing about poker is it ends up being the ideal learning environment because you are learning by experience, you're playing, but you're actually sampling base rates correctly if you play a lot. So you're actually experiencing the probabilities that your mind otherwise wouldn't learn. You can understand why it would make sense that our brains evolved to learn from experience. Who's going to survive? The hunter who goes to his usual bush and in the morning and finds a lion there, runs away and never comes back? Or the one who says, you know, probabilistically speaking, I only saw the lion there once, and he wasn't there on the prior 10 mornings, so he's probably not going to be there tomorrow, so I'm just going to go ahead and go back there because the probability is on my side. Well, that guy's probably no longer in the gene pool, whereas the guy who said, I saw a lion, let's run from here forever and never go there again, is, even though the second guy was right, most of the time. That's the thing about probabilities. In individual cases, they break down. Probabilities don't care about base rates. And you don't care about base rates, really, when you're making decisions for yourself. You only care about, yes, but how does it apply to me? How does it make me feel? People who live in Florida, same thing with flooding insurance. Did you live through a hurricane? What happened? Your sense of risk, your decision-making is skewed by what you've personally experienced.